All right, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll let people usher in here. And I'm going to give all of you a task before I introduce my amazing guests that I've already had a wonderful conversation with. So I feel like I've been cheating here from all the wisdom that you're going to get from them. But I would love, as people come in, to open up the chat and let us know where you're broadcasting from. I'm broadcasting here from San Diego. So where it's beautiful and 68 degrees. We'd love to hear where people are coming in from. North Carolina, great. Teresa, Texas, excellent. We've got a lot of Texas representation: Missouri, California, Indianapolis, Washington. Awesome. South Jersey. And, feel free to chime in the chat if you have a comment or a reflection, and it'll be fun to be able to sort of interact a little bit with the chat. Welcome to This Clinical Life. My name is Stephen Beeson. I am a family medicine physician and founder of Practicing Excellence, trying to make a difference in the world through the process of people development to raise their capacity to create amazing outcomes for them and the mission that we serve. And I have two incredible guests here that I have been really following for a little bit, because we're swimming in the same channels of how do we develop human capacity for amazing impact. And they've got an exciting new book that we're going to talk all about. But we have Dr. Adaira Landry. She's an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's. She's currently Academic Society Associate Director and Advisor for Harvard Medical School, also co-chair for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee within the Department of Emergency Medicine, point of care ultrasound master trainer, and sort of national advocate for using this clinical instrument to be able to raise clinical impact and our ability to make a difference in all sorts of different channels of medicine. So Adaira, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet, you bet. And we also have Dr. Resa Lewiss, professor of emergency medicine, a TED Med speaker, Time's Up healthcare founder, also an international renowned point of care ultrasound educator and champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace and workplace safety, host of Visible Voices podcast, and just a difference maker in the world, both of them. So Resa, welcome.
Thanks so much. It's great to see you. And hello, everybody. Mark Shapiro, I see you.
Hey, Mark. It was funny, but Mark is the host of Explore the Space podcast, yes, one of our lead faculty for our hospital's content for Practicing Excellence. So he's here. Hey, Mark. It's a little intimidating, given Mark's expertise in the podcast world. So anyway, I want to kick off with, I sort of read your bio, which is helpful, like patient demographic information, but it tells nothing of the story of who you are and what you're all about. So Resa, let's start with you. If I could ask the question, what is your main goal and the kind of impact that you want to be able to make in the world, given all of your history to date and what you're going to be doing forward? If you could say, these are the things that I want to be able to do and the difference that I want to be able to make, what's that story for you?
Thanks for the question. I think simply stated, I'm here to make a difference. I'm here to take care of myself and take care of other people. And I'm here to create, and those creations can take many forms, many media, plural of medium, media. And in this case, our conversation today, this book of micro skills, our goal was to try to make it easier for everybody to be really good at work.
It's incredible, the application of people development to create behavioral change, to create a meaningful outcome is such a powerful channel. And again, I want to learn from you in terms of your approach in all of this, but thank you for sharing that. Adaira, how would you describe your sort of, if my life was everything I hoped it to be, and I got everything done that I aspired to do and become, what's your story?
Well, I think this is a funny answer for a podcast on being excellent. But I would say I want to be known and have an impact that is really built around who I am and not necessarily just what I do. I feel like the vast majority of my career I've been focused on the projects, the deadlines and all of the tasks that are in front of me, and really focusing on, getting promoted or titles or academic endeavors. And I really feel like I'm at the age now where I really want to just focus on who I am and how I am as a person, able to impact how other people are and who they are. And one way we do that is through writing, by writing articles and books that make the workplace easier for people, that really come from a point of being compassionate. Resa and I love to talk about self-compassion and self-care. That is like so fundamental to us. And I really want to be known as someone, yes, who's ambitious, but also who really understands humanity and how we are all people trying to survive in a workplace.
It's so interesting as I reflect on what you had both said in different ways. We all, I think at the end of the day, want to be able to leave the world a better place, to be a light in the world, and to see meaningful impact that resonates with why we're on this planet. But our days are, filled with objectives, projects, tasks that we have to do that don't always sync with that, right? I mean, we're doing work and we're checking boxes and we're generating RVUs or whatever the band of work is that we're doing. But the ability to step back and say, who do I want to be in this life? And what kind of impact do I want to be able to make, allows us to economize how we dedicate our spirit and our time and our effort to render the kind of impact that is ultimately the joyful life. And we get so wrapped up, I think, particularly as clinicians, in the life operations, so that we forget about the life strategy. So thank you for sharing that wisdom. I want to talk and go back a little bit about the idea that the micro skills and small changes, big impact, which is sort of the subtitle of the book. Tell us a little bit about how that idea came about and why you decided to write this book. And Resa, maybe we'll start with you in terms of your perspective on this.
Sounds great. I identify as a reader, love books, and read a lot of books on development, professional development, leadership, communication. It's this category called business self-help. And when Adaira and I were writing articles about navigating the workplace, being better at work, such as on mentorship, such as writing your own letter of reference, and the idea came to go bigger, meaning write a book, we were looking at a bunch of books, a bunch of titles, and what we found was many tell you what to do, but not how to do it. And so we really wanted to write something that would be actionable, that people would find useful, not overwhelming, and just basically break things down step by step. And it truly does come from the fact that we're both clinicians, we're both emergency physicians. And if you think about suturing a patient that comes in and all the steps, check their name and date of birth, get all your supplies, wash your hands, glove, anesthetize, irrigate, not, don't judge the steps I just shared, but you understand, like break it down to small steps and forget the medical. Think about when we were all learning to tie our shoes. Now, albeit many people may not tie shoes anymore because they have slip-ons or maybe Velcro, but when you learn how to tie your shoe, there's all these steps. Open up the tongue, slip in your foot, maybe use, something to prop your foot in, pull one lace taut, pull the other lace. You understand, breaking it down into step by step by step. And our thought is that each step builds upon each other to get you ultimately to a larger goal, to a larger change in the way you navigate work, and to even gaining characteristics or traits that you never thought were a part of you and the way you work that actually are attainable.
It's almost learning how to learn, and the ability to apply simplicity, stepwise progress to complex tasks to allow you to achieve something. And it's the fundamental mechanism of taking current state to future state, right? To become better in our work, we have to apply learning and development and skill application to achieve that. And to be able to do it stepwise, as you describe, is a really compelling mechanism. Adaira, tell us a little bit about your perspective in terms of kind of the calling to write the book, which is a massive commitment of time and energy and a little bit of your soul.
Well, I will say that Resa and I went into this book, as two people, but we are definitely different coming out of this book. I mean, it's almost a 3-year journey. And we sort of describe it as a marriage, or I describe it as a marriage. I feel like you get to know someone on a different level when you're writing a book. And in regards to why we wanted to write this book, it really definitely has an origin story as far as our own personal experiences climbing the professional ladder. Resa and I both have overlapping and differing experiences, but it's all sort of united around this idea that some people are given a playbook or a guide or a compass, and it just, from where we're sitting, it just felt like it was easy for them to just shoot up and skyrocket and propel themselves. And for others, like myself, I had moments where I was like, how are they doing this? Like, who's telling them all of these secrets, and who is their inner network, and how does it seem like they're just getting everything? And I can think of one very particular moment where it became so clear that there are people who have support and strategy, and then there are those who don't. I was pretty early in my career, and I was an assistant residency director, and I was surrounded by amazing, ambitious people. And I consider myself also ambitious, but I was surrounded by people who were just getting grants and awards and giving huge lectures. And I was not doing any of those things. And I asked someone, it's like, how are you succeeding? Who's nominating you for all of these things, and who's coming to you with all of these opportunities? Because that's how I assumed it was happening. And this person responded saying, Adaira, I am nominating myself. If I see something that I want, I go find a sponsor or a mentor, and I say, hey, can you put me up for this? I really want to do this. Basically, they were saying, stop waiting for someone to save your career, right? But like, until you hear that, until that is crystallized, and for some people, that's really early on. Maybe their parents told them when they were a child. For me, that was not the case. So, I was like in my 30s where I realized, oh my gosh, someone has to do something, and that someone is me, not like my mentor. Like, I'm the one driving the ship. I just wish I learned that earlier. And that's something that we really emphasize in the book, that you are driving this.
And that's super empowering. I mean, it's in this time, particularly in healthcare, where people feel like they may not have agency over their destiny and who they are professionally and what they're able to do and become. The idea of you can take action through continuous initiative, learning, and development to create the life that you hope for. And that it's powerful. And that's a little bit about what I hear from you.
But the thing is that we don't want people to wait until they're in their 30s and 40s to figure it out. So the book is really a solution to what we see as a very clear gap, that some people, have it. They have that access to information just by who they know, where they're entering, what schools they went to, and some of us don't. And so we feel like that book is a bridge. This book is a bridge for those people.
Well, I think that there is a differential in opportunity and access, as you say, and the idea of giving tools to people to take action on their internal focus of control is super powerful. And I can speak for my own initiative. I mean, my identity and the majority of my life has been managing a 2,200 patient panel as a family medicine physician. There's a point where I decided I want to do something different in my life, and I started practicing excellence. There were no circumstances, nudges, prompts. It was a decision to take an action to create something, and that had many, many failures along the way. But I think you can probably both attest, those that break through and achieve and become something. It can be a podcast host, or it can be the starting of a new company, or it can be the building of a new product, or just ascending in your professional, personal life. Those things happen by your own fuel that drive initiative and action. And I think that this micro skills plan is super exciting to enable that endeavor.
I love your share. I love all the audience members that are chatting in the chat box. So please keep sending the messages our way. But I have to ask you, so therefore, did our chapter on micro skills for developing subject matter expertise resonate and help you as you had made
Well,
that transition?
it was, it's really, really interesting, but I have listed on my questions, of which I've asked none of them, which is typical for me. My preparation is I'm going to have these 10 questions and I ask none of them because that's just the way it goes. This is not the Krebs cycle, right? This is it's a branch tree, but it particularly resonated for me because the subject matter expert chapter, if you will, is so proximal to I am going to learn and take initiative and figure something out. And then after 6, 12, 24 months, you look over your shoulder and you go, people are coming to me to ask about a thing that I knew nothing about 2 years ago. And then all of a sudden, and that happened for me with coaching physicians. I had no idea. And there's no big certification thing. It was, this is really interesting. I want to ask for help. I want to ask for feedback. I'm going to try things. I'm going to fail. I'm going to succeed. You're going to PDSA it for 2 years. And all of a sudden you go, well, I guess I know how to do this. And so, which is very similar to the thesis of you drive your ship and what do you want to do and become. And again, the micro skills process was, so yes, that chapter in particular was super connecting for me personally. One of the other questions I have is, and again, I know that your book is transcendent to the human development process of applying micro skills, small changes for big outcomes. Talk to me a little bit about your understanding of what it's like to go through that mastery journey as a learner, as somebody who says, I want to do something and become something, and I'm going to apply this micro skills approach. What do they benefit? How do they benefit outside of the fact of mastering a new skill? Tell me a little bit about what that's like to go through a mastery journey.
It might be helpful because the audience has not read the book yet, hopefully they will, but to sort of explain what a micro skill looks like visually in the book. So Resa and I really wanted to demonstrate to the audience that we have a very personal relationship with what we're trying to teach you, because these are all originating from our journey, our personal journey, either as someone who is learning a lesson or has observed another person learning a lesson. And we wanted to share very true, full and raw and authentic vignettes that sort of really grounds the fact that we are successful people and we too have had failures and have doubted ourselves and have been judged and have judged others incorrectly. All of that vulnerability we feel like is like the most important part when it comes to learning something and asking yourself, like, what is it about me that what is the story? What is the origin story that makes me want to learn this skill? I think it's a great point to reflect on as far as like, why do I feel like I need this skill anyway? What is it that's happened to me in the past? What have I seen happen to others? So we start every micro skill with a vignette, and then we move into why we actually feel like you need it. Like, what is the value of the skill itself? Because we don't want you just doing things for the sake of doing it. This isn't like just a fun exercise that has no actual measurable output, but we really want to provide value. And so we talk about why the skill is helpful, what happens if you don't use it. And then we also really go into why it's hard to implement certain skills. And we think that's also crucial because everyone comes at this book with different starting points. And we always want to normalize that some of this stuff that we're teaching is really hard to do. Some of these changes are really hard, right? We have commitments like children, we have limited resources with our funding, we have limited time because we're overworked. And so we really want to bring in all of the reasons why it's hard for us, any of us, to get better at work. And then the most important thing is that we go into critical actions. Like, what are the actual steps that you can take to learn that particular micro skills?
Yeah. I'll say that we started from a place of respect, respecting ourselves, respecting our team, respecting the work, and basically normalizing this very human experience of things can be overwhelming. Things can seem too big, too hard, too large. And so when you look at the book and you look at the table of contents, we have 10 chapters of micro skills. And within each chapter, there are smaller skills within the micro skill title that we cover. And we designed it intentionally that you don't have to read it cover to cover, although we fully think that you'll want to read it cover to cover, but you don't have to read it cover to cover. You can, look at the table of contents and jump right to a micro skill that you want to work on, or a challenge you're having in the workplace that you are looking for some sort of solution or some sort of approach. The book's comprehensive, and we think everybody's going to find it useful.
I would love to hear some of the specific micro skills. We sort of alluded to them, but if you could say, and let's bring it, let's do it within a healthcare context, or we don't have to, but micro skills that can be that you have seen historically being of great benefit to a professional journey of someone in or out of medicine. Give us some specific examples of what those micro skills might be.
I can do one on being a subject matter expert, and then Resa, you can go over one too. So when I was earlier in my career, I worked with someone who was much more senior than I am. He was internationally known, recognized, not just in healthcare, but he was also doing medical legal consulting and was being pulled into cases as an expert. He was also a consultant for technology companies and doing a lot of education and consulting for engineering teams. And he was a clinician who was being sort of pulled on into different directions from the hospital leadership. And so it was very clear that this person was successful, and he was a subject matter expert in both clinical medicine and ultrasound. And I was not there, right? I had no one calling me. And so I remember just thinking, like, how does one get to this position where he is in? And I will tell you that I was very nervous to ask him. I actually thought, even though this person is really nice and wonderful, his name is Dr. Mike Stone, and he's a wonderful person, I just felt nervous to ask because it almost felt invasive, right? Like it almost felt like I was asking him to spill some secret path or journey or network or society that he had accumulated that I should not just like be easily handed, right? And so it took me a long time to start actually asking people who were visibly more successful than I am, how did you get that specific opportunity, right? So how did you become an expert? It was one of those things. And so over time, I ended up asking, and he said, the first thing you have to do is learn the topic, like learn the actual content you want to be an expert in, right? So that's like reading the books, watching the lectures, reading the or listening to the podcast, right? Like you need to have an increased fund of knowledge so that it's very clear that if someone asks you a question, you're not just passionate about the topic, you actually know the topic, right? And so that was very clear to me. Cut out all of the stuff that I'm doing around me that's not really teaching me more content. The second thing was to demonstrate your expertise, right? Like to sign up to teach and to do workshops and lectures and demonstrate to other people, that you have learned this stuff, but that also reveals your own knowledge gaps. So I started signing up for ultrasound lectures, for instance. The third thing was to collaborate with other people, right? Because as you build your network, they see your expertise and then they say, oh, I'm busy, but honestly, Dr. Landry would be perfect for this. And I know she's great because I've seen her lecture on it and I have talked to her about this topic and she really knows it, right? So you're building your network and you can also do that back for them, right? There's give and take here, but you're building this pool of people who can tap into you. And then I think, another layer here is like running for a particular position or putting your name up for a particular position so that you are going to be the director of, the vice chair of, the chair of, whatever. And that sort of, again, solidifies your expertise. And then you start thinking about, that's all healthcare. What can I do outside of healthcare? Or that's tangential, so that I'm not just an expert within medicine, but like I'm also an expert in the medical legal or the legal world, and people are coming to me for that, or in tech and industry or pharmaceuticals, right? Like outside of your immediate network, you are building a reputation there as well. And so I was very curious, like, how did you get into tech? And so he told me that he just, again, was recognized as being an author on papers and speaking a lot, and someone just mentioned his name.
it's so, there's so much resonance with that story as people take an individual approach to say, I want to do something different and more impactful that I'm passionate about, and asking for help. The famous story of Steve Jobs asking Bill Hewitt very early in his life about, can I get some tools from Hewlett Packard on building a digital counter? And he formed a relationship with Bill Hewitt, got him on the production line, and that was the beginning and the launch of his career. And Steve Jobs' reflection was, you will be amazed at how much people want to help guide and mentor others and to share their wisdom. Not always, because sometimes they're overwhelmed themselves, but I love that step one. And then the idea of leveraging teaching to learn. It's one of the most powerful ways of learning things. I did really well in the MCAT because I taught the courses, and I became a TA for the courses that were on the MCAT, and it was a solidification. And that self-learning process, I'm going to dive in and when I was a coach tasked with coaching clinicians to improve patient experience, I just read every article and book I could find. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you go, well, I kind of know a lot about this, and I don't have to make stuff up. I can actually reference things. So there's super specific guidance on how to power that ascent journey. Resa, I would love to hear your reflection. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think 30 when I learned that, right? That's not super old, but like I went through residency and fellowship not knowing much of that. And so, it would have been helpful to understand that process earlier on.
Well, I would even say that in the absence of taking action to ascent in something that you're passionate about, if that door never opens, you never learn it, or you never begin the process, you will, in all likelihood, go through the operational process of completing your training, getting your job, going home at night, building a retirement, doing your thing, retiring, and then you're done. Right? I mean, it's about finding, I want to go to that place, and taking all those steps that you talk about to end up in some place that you go, man, I just love this part of my life. And then maybe it becomes your life, kind of like what you guys have done. So super cool. So Resa, I would love to hear from you in terms of specific micro skills that you have found particularly resonant in helping and supporting people in their professional or even personal journey.
Sure. So I'll reflect. The story that Adaira just shared basically is like a Venn diagram of many of the micro skills we discuss in the book. Micro skills for polished communication, micro skills for developing subject matter expertise, micro skills to grow your network. And so all those came together in that story she illustrated. So they all build upon each other, and they're all related to each other. One of the ones I wanted to speak on is micro skills to learn your workplace culture. And Adaira and I, sometimes when we were writing, we're like, well, how is it that we know the culture? Because some of these concepts or some of these knowledge nuggets, you're like, but how did I learn that? How did we learn it? And then how can we teach our readers about it? And I have an example at one of my hospital positions, the way communications happened with faculty, there was a lot of CCing everybody, and CCing so that, you don't have to repeat, everybody's on the same page. And the assumption is everybody's reading their email. I moved to another institution and I started CCing people who I thought needed to know. And I had a colleague say, why did you CC everybody? And kind of took it as I was sort of exposing or outing or distrusting. And I was surprised because at one workplace, the culture was CC everybody. And the next it was, keep it tight 1-to-1, even though, let's be clear, email is forwardable and everything's visible. And so I don't know, I was a bit surprised, but that was a lesson in the workplace culture. So we talk about getting to know your workplace culture, and we approach all of these micro skills with this concept that not everybody's given the playbook. Here's your playbook. Right. Not everybody has the same emotional intelligence, the same resources, the same network to know, but here are ways that you can get to know the workplace culture. Take a look at the organizational chart, be a deep observer at meetings, see what behaviors are rewarded, see what behaviors don't necessarily get such positive response.
There's so much wisdom there. And I want to, there's a couple of things that I want to ask you about as sort of, if we consider current state to future state. Current state is who we are right now. Future state is our best selves, making the kind of impact that just lights us up. End of the day, we put our head down and we go, that was a freaking awesome day, right? That's our future state, right? And that could be a million different things for different people. And that enzyme to catalyze current state to future state is there's a lot of different things, but human development, raising our capacity to be that future state, and the microlearning approach. One of the things that I have seen and experienced, and really what prompted me to do what I'm doing right now, which is applying technology to develop the clinical body to become better for patients, better for each other, and better as leaders, is that the recipients of mastery, I am learning to be better on things that are important to me. And I see a feedback loop that I actually am indeed becoming a better colleague, a better leader, and a better clinician for the patient, that it's a huge driver of contentment, meaning I am better, I'm becoming better, and I'm proud of myself. You know, I've become an encourager, an upstander, a growth mindset leader, or whatever the thing is that you happen to learn. We may be the greatest recipients of all in terms of contentment and meaning and purpose, which is why I'm so excited about the work that you're doing, is that the application of micro skills, you know, small changes, big impact. Yes, it can create people that are massively contributory to better workplace cultures and outcomes, but it's really pretty great for them in the journey. And I would love for you to comment a little bit, maybe personally, about what the ascent, and maybe, Adaira, what your journey was like to be able to go from a 30-year-old reflecting to I have now become a national expert in something, and what that felt like for you, as we can extrapolate what the mastery journey might be for others.
I would say it was the pacing has changed. So I would say I have, well, I started moving much faster when I felt like, okay, I think I want to be, not that there's anything wrong with just practicing clinical medicine, but I wanted to do more with my MD than just see patients. And so I think in the beginning, packed my plate quite quickly with titles and responsibilities, and also children, which I think is also a title and a responsibility as a mother. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of demands, and I was being pulled from all different directions, as probably many people here have been in, at some point in their career. I would say that the light bulb went off when I had signed up for a 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. panel on literally, I'm going to say like Resa, literally, work-life balance. And I was on this panel, and my 2 kids at the time, I had 2, were outside, being loud and everything. So I closed my door, and they were trying to get into the room. So I literally, again, pushed like a dresser against the door so that they wouldn't come in, so that I could do this, so I can give this panel or be part of this panel, right? Because I felt like I needed to be involved with my career, and to say no to something would have been harmful to my career. So I said yes to this opportunity. And so I'm literally on a panel about work-life balance, and someone is like, so Dr. Landry, can you tell us the strategies that you take to be balanced? And like on the other door, I'm hearing my kids, Mama, let me in, open the door. It was so hilarious and frustrating at the same time, because no one was happy, right? My kids weren't happy. I was not happy. The other panelists and the moderator and the audience members were not happy. I was clearly stretched out too thin. And that was like the switch where I said, I am no longer doing these like 6 to 9 p.m. meet and greets, socials, anything that's like pushing me towards stress. And so I started blocking out my calendar. It started first with just evenings. And then it transitioned to weekends, right? Because for me to do stuff on the weekend meant that I was away from my kids, and they're so young, and we get to see them so many days of the week all day. And so I started blocking out weekend activities as well. And interestingly enough, that mindset shift of like, I don't need to say yes to everything. And honestly, because I had that protected space, I loved my job more. Like I loved the work because I just felt like I would come back to work more refreshed and more in control of my schedule. And so I started pulling back from things. I went from 3 titled positions to 1 that I've now kept for the last few years with no complaints. I love that position. And I've cut down my clinical time a bit too, so that I can work on my personal hobbies like writing with Dr. Lewiss. But I just started to understand the value of control and pacing myself. And that is like much more sustainable than just pushing. So the ascent, even that word can sometimes be intimidating because it's like fast, right? It's like a fast climb, but you can just slowly pace yourself. Like it can be a light jog upwards. It doesn't have to be such a fast race.
Right.
And it keeps you in the competition or the race or whatever it is you're trying to go for longer if you're not burnt out.
Well, what's interesting is the idea of learning how to deploy your time, effort, and spirit is a skill set in and of itself. And in the absence of an intervention of learning how to try to it's work-life balance is it may be entirely unachievable, but you can make decisions as to what you're going to do and what you're not going to do and how you're going to block your time. That is a skill set, unless there's a definitive intervention on this is how I'm going to manage the demands coming at me. Many of us fall to yes. I don't know my kids. My kids have grown up without me. I'm miserable, exhausted, and burned out. Unless we apply skills to allow us to make those decisions like you have made, that have given you the capacity to breathe, to be with your kids, to write a book, and to pursue things that matter to you. So,
in the book, we switch from, telling people to say yes to everything to say, tell me more. Because the more you learn about something in front of you, the more it becomes very apparent that's not really what you want to do, or you don't really have time to do it either.
Right. So Resa, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, Esther, Chanel, Penny, thanks for the shout outs and the thoughts. Yeah, very appreciated. You brought up time, and we're very early on in the book to talk to the reader and talk about thinking about time as a currency. And essentially, you can't put it in your savings account. It can only be spent. And so you should be very thoughtful about how you spend your time and with whom you spend your time. And we offer thoughts in the book on how to basically parse your time in ways that you don't feel spread too thin, and to take things off the plate, to be more creative. And the other thing that we teach and that builds upon each other is this concept of deliberate practice, deliberate rest. We are brainwashed academics, and academics will take and take and take and take and take and take and take. And one of the phrases that we quote that actually was written in an editorial years ago was, your workplace, your hospital, your company, your industry won't love you back. And we think, we give, we have this loyalty. And then all of us hit this point of realizing, like, they don't have the same loyalty to me that I have to them. They meaning the industry, the organization. And I think once you have that wake up of, I need to take care of myself, and if I don't take care of myself, nobody else will, I think everything kind of starts falling into place. And you start being more selective, more careful. You create boundaries, and you start practicing self-care. And our chapter 1 is micro skills for self-care.
And there we go. One of the things that, I'm super passionate about the work that you're doing, where people can learn micro skills to really create balance. And it was described as a dance. I love that, because you can't balance in the life it's more of a dance of how do we oscillate between our work responsibilities, our professional responsibilities, in a way that gives us sustainability. And I love that description. The other thing that I have found to be really important, not just from how do I apply micro skills in my life to live the life that I hope for, but also how we do it organizationally. for example, I have found, clinicians in particular are held account and responsible for things that many have never learned how to do.
Mm-hmm.
For example, how do we become a good local clinical microsystem team leader that allows the people who look to us for leadership to thrive and contribute and to feel safe? It's profoundly important as to whether clinicians have that skill or not. Yet clinicians learning the skills of psychological safety, low authority gradients, encouragement, and growth mindset, we don't deploy skill development efforts to allow clinicians to learn how to lead their teams, let alone how do we activate patients in their care? How do we honor the diversity of patients that are sitting before us and the profound circumstances and life conditions that they have been through for us to be able to advance their wellness? We don't apply skills to any of those critical elements of becoming better clinicians. And I've always felt as though developing people is the greatest untapped resource for organizations to help and support their people to become both contributory to what we want to do and become as an organization, and contented that I am making a difference with my patients, with my teammates, and those that I lead. Anyway, that was not really a question, but that was just sort of a realization. I wasn't as smart as you. I didn't learn it at 30. That came around 50. That I realized developing people to allow them to contribute and be contented is something that we in organizations often don't do, and sort of why I think all of us are here now. And I know we're wrapping up. I have a final question for each of you. If you could give your sort of your wisdom, and if we think about the application of micro skills to advance and find the lives that we seek, what would you tell the listeners in terms of what they should do outside of getting your book and reading your book and applying your book? What counsel might you give them individually to begin to engage in the microlearning journey? Resa, why don't we start with you?
So just like I'm pausing, I think I would encourage everybody to take a pause and take a think and maybe take a walk in nature. I believe in all that stuff. I think everything starts with the self. And I think if you value yourself, you respect yourself, and you believe you deserve, which is sort of pretty loaded, but to sort of have a life where you're not feeling spread thin, you're not feeling like you're always serving things that you don't value, then I think you're obligated to stop and do those sort of deliberate rest activities to figure out what small micro skill changes you can make. And there are many things we want readers to take from the book, but I think this concept of breaking things down into small pieces, building things in small pieces, it doesn't weigh you down. It doesn't seem overwhelming. It doesn't seem impossible if you just break things down step by step, skill by skill, small piece by small piece. And so that's what I really want readers, listeners to know, is this is achievable. We believe for virtually everybody, with the lens of workplace and feeling respected, fulfilled in the workplace.
There's so much wisdom there. Love it.
I think I would add, and this is built off my own practice. When I meet with my medical students, especially when they first arrive, I ask them, how will you know this upcoming academic year has been successful for you? Like at the end of the year, when you're reflecting, what do you expect to say at the end of the sentence, where this year was successful because and everyone has a different answer to that. For some people, it's because I stayed in contact with people who meant the most to me. Or for others, it was successful because I was able to, publish a paper. But I think it's important to understand that your definition of success is going to be different than almost anyone else's, right? Because it's going to be built based off of your personal experiences and journey and influenced by all of who you are and your identity. And so I would say when you're doing the pause that Dr. Lewis mentioned, add onto that question, what does success look like for me? Because you really want to know that before you just start powering through. And again, pushing yourself into a direction that might just feel like a rapid ascent. You can go slow. You can really go slow and learn about other people and what they are doing and meeting people and prioritizing conversations over commitments. That's a great phrase that I learned from a mentor in my medical school, that we should really value people, and conversation more than just work. And work to me means like check boxes on a sheet of paper or, slots on the calendar. It can also just be a conversation on shift or in the hallway that really feels like you're connecting with the people who are around you on a regular basis, more than the people who are at home, in honesty. And so I would say thinking about what you value, that will never not be, helpful.
Well, I think that, what I hear from the two of you is, first and foremost, pause, reflect, and figure out really who you want to be in this life. And what will my identity be, for my children, for my colleagues, for myself, and what sort of contribution I want to make in my life. Because I think, Resa, as you said, that identity shapes and informs all the decisions and the learning that we engage in to become that person. The other thing that I love that you mentioned is, what does success look like to me? And I think that there's real value in even writing and sharing those things to say, if this year were everything I hoped it to be, then what has happened? And it could be, I have taken each of my children on an overnight trip that they really wanted to go to. I mean, it could be, there's so many different,
it could be anything.
Things. It could be anything, but the idea of this is what I, as a parent, this is how I define my success. Professionally, this is how I define my success. And as Yogi Berra says, if you don't know where you're going, you're guaranteed to get there. And the overwhelming operational demands of medicine, it will steal everything from you unless you develop all the skills that you talk about in self-care and who do I want to be and how do I apply skills to funnel my life to meaning, purpose, impact, and live in accordance with my values. So anyway, it has been such a joy to hear you, and I'm grateful for your April 16th contribution to in your micro skills, small changes, big impact book that's coming up. I think you've already got a few pre-orders here from our attendees, and we look forward to continuing to see your impact on every industry, and certainly in healthcare, about how we apply human development to find our best lives. So grateful for both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you bet. And we'll finish with, if people want or need to get a hold of you, what would you recommend? Adaira, how about from your standpoint?
Social media is great for me. I'll put my handle. I'm on all the apps. So X, LinkedIn, yes. Instagram. I even have a TikTok.
Oh my gosh. Look at you.
I know. No, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm proud or ashamed.
Same. We both have websites. We're on social media. Reach out.
Okay.
We'd love to connect. And yes, we really appreciate all of your engagement. It's been great to have this conversation, and we appreciate the invitation.
You bet. You bet. And we'll be sending out some videos of this so people can watch it on demand later. So again, thank you very much. And thank you all of you for attending, and have an amazing, wonderful day. And we are out.